we are very excited to have a new unusual suspect. I don't believe we've ever had an attorney general on the podcast before, but for the first time, a third-time attorney general for the great state of Texas. Joining us today, we have Ken Paxton. Ken, thank you so much for making time to join us today.
I didn't realize I was the first, but I'm honored to be here.
You are the first, and to my knowledge, the greatest, because you're the only one that's appeared so far. But so far, 100%.
Well, thank you.
Thank you for joining us. So, look, your state has seen something that only a few states in the country have actually experienced firsthand. It's you, Arizona, and California are the only actual states that can attest to the crisis at the border under Kamala Harris and Joe Biden and that administration. Can you please let us know what it was like under a Donald Trump 2016 to 2020 administration and how the border was protected as opposed to where we currently sit, where we have, according to some estimates, more than 8 million illegal immigrants in sanctuary cities across the United States, but it looks like there's far more that are unaccounted for.
Yeah, so being there under Donald Trump was pretty exciting because we had never seen a president actually enforce all of our laws. And he did it effectively, and the numbers came down, and it made a difference in our state. Less crime, and it protected our citizens from all kinds of different things. When Joe Biden came in on day one, he didn't wait a month. He didn't wait a week. On day one, it was so important to him, he announced that he wasn't going to deport anybody. Now, you only do that if you want the cartels to know to bring people, and that's exactly what happened. And our state experienced something like we've never experienced with illegal immigration, fentanyl coming in, sex trafficking, crimes, and just the general cost of dealing with all of this illegal immigration. It was a tremendous burden on our state.
And you've had to have an uphill battle to fight for the people of Texas to have a secure border. You have been outspoken, and you have tell us some of the tactics that you have used against the Biden administration in attempts to secure the border so that you could stop that influx of illegal immigration.
Well, the first thing we did was we sued over existing federal law. So as soon as he said he wasn't deporting, we sued him on the third day, got an injunction on the sixth day to say, hey, you can't not follow the law. And then he continued to try to break the law by not building the wall. So he got an appropriation from Congress that directed him to spend money on building the wall, and he refused to do it. He started siphoning off funds. We sued him, and we finally got a ruling in May saying he had to build the wall. We're still in those battles, and it just never ends with him. He continues to evade federal law in his constitutional role, which is to follow the law, to follow the laws that are existing, not the ones he would love to have.
Question for you before I go to Amy. Who is the border czar? Could you just answer that question? Because it's very odd. They proclaim her in documents as the border czar, but then whenever it came up, it was the oddest gaslighting I've ever seen, because they would tell you to your face that what they previously bragged about her as far as her roles in the administration, she was very integral in the success that we've had in these different battles to fight inflation. Oh, she's the border czar. Then all of a sudden, when she became the nominee, which didn't actually happen according to the primaries, and they subverted democracy to put her in place and install her as the candidate, all of a sudden she had nothing to do with the border. She had nothing to do with any of the successes or the poor performance of the Biden administration. So as the Attorney General of a border state, who is the border czar of the United States today, and who has been for quite some time now?
Well, it's Kamal.
And thank you for confirming that.
But there's a conflict, right? Because as time went on, people realized she wasn't doing the job the way that it should be done. She wasn't enforcing laws. She wasn't coming down there. She didn't care about border security. And it was so obvious. And so she did her best to distance herself from that position, even though they're the ones that told us that that's what she does.
Amy, your question for Attorney General Ken Paxton.
The first Attorney General on the show.
The very first.
Yes, welcome. This was the perfect segue. I wanted to know, with President Trump now coming into power, his plans for mass deportations and his selection of Tom Homan for now border czar, have you had the opportunity to meet with Mr. Homan yet, or anybody from the administration? And what do you envision Texas's role being to assist with the overall national strategy for mass deportations?
So I know Tom well. I have not met with him yet. He's been kind of busy.
Fair enough.
They're all busy getting started and getting ready to start implementing. But I do know this. I worked with him a lot when he was doing what he was doing for Trump in the last administration. And I have no doubt that we will work hand in hand, just like we did 4 years ago, to make sure that our border is secure. And I've never seen anybody better in that job than Tom Homan. So I'm very excited about that pick, and I'm looking forward to working with Tom in the future.
How
It's amazing.
important is it when it comes to the fight on illegal immigration that the media portrays what's going on as accurate? I have a friend who lives in Austin, Texas, and he tells me that I have been brainwashed by the right. Now, I have been and to this day, I am a registered Democrat. Don't boo me. I didn't vote Democrat this time. I didn't. For the first time in my life, I voted for a Republican. I voted for Donald Trump because I watched what has gone on with this current administration. I went, I want no more of this. I am tired of this. I need a change because I don't feel as secure. My family doesn't feel as secure as we did 4 years ago when Donald Trump was in office. When you look at this, the media tells us that things aren't happening even though they are. Just this week, it was proven that Tren de Aragua had taken over. Remember in September, they were saying that the Venezuelan gang members had taken over a condo complex in Aurora, Colorado. And the media insisted that did not happen. They denied it. They gaslit it. They even tried to fact check J.D. Vance while he was doing an interview with ABC. But then you look at this past week where 13 members of Tren de Aragua were arrested in Colorado for kidnapping and holding hostage two people, stabbing them and robbing them before the two people were able to escape and call police. How important is it that the media actually portrays what is going on in Texas? Is there still, in fact, an invasion at the border in Texas? And do you see that media coverage being changed differently once Donald Trump takes office, or do you think it's going to be the same tactics over the last 4 years?
Well, look, I have no confidence in media. So if you're asking me about the media, the general media, they just are not honest about it. I think I just met with the state police, the new head director of the state police in Texas, and there's no doubt we still have a problem. Now, since Biden shut it down a little bit when he was running and had Kamala running, they shut it down a little bit. But there's still, as he just told me this yesterday, that we still have some of the most dangerous people coming in. They are moving some of the most dangerous people from all over the world into our country, and that's a reality. So we still have a major problem, and the Biden administration now doesn't care. Obviously, they're fine with it.
Your question?
I want.
Oh, go ahead.
So,
Brandon.
speaking of gangs and cartels and Tom Homan, so Tom Homan's come out and said some pretty aggressive things about going after the cartel with possibly the use of U.S. military force. What do you think the odds of doing that are, and what do you think that would look like and what's the importance of him actually doing that?
You know what? I love Tom Homan because we had to sue the Biden administration over cutting down fences and wire on our property.
Yeah, that was
not
crazy.
not their
That's
property.
crazy.
And we finally won that. We had to stop them from moving. We put buoys out to stop people from coming across the border in the water, which actually protected them.
Mm-hmm.
And to hear Tom Homan say we are going to be aggressive going after criminals,
Yeah.
I got no problem with that. I think I'm hopeful, and I don't know why they wouldn't be able to do it because they are causing severe damage to our country.
Legally, would we be able to do that, going into Mexico after the cartel with the use of military?
I mean, we've done it in the past. We've done it in Colombia and other places where drug importation and criminal activity was taking place.
That's a good point.
Humberto, your question for Attorney General Ken Paxton.
Back to the latest data that we have from ICE, they say that 435,000 illegal immigrants have criminal records. And imagine that. That's the guys that they know they're here, that they caught. So it could be in the millions, all right? I'm a recent immigrant here. I came here a year and a half ago.
We're glad to have you.
No, I'm glad to be here. But my whole life, I went to school. I don't have as much as a parking ticket. I never had a parking ticket, and I spent tens of thousands of dollars to do everything the right way. And then they let all these people come in. What does this next administration or what Texas is doing for law-abiding citizens that want to make this country better?
Well, first of all, I didn't have a parking ticket or a speeding ticket until I became AG, and then I became all kinds of trouble. So I was in the same boat. So the last administration literally encouraged illegal immigration of criminals. And the reason I know that is we sued them and said at the very least, you can't allow known criminals to come into our country. And they litigated over that. They fought us trying to get the illegals in here that had a criminal history. So all of these countries were like, why not send them to the border? The Trump administration will not tolerate that. And it will be a completely different policy to protect America, to secure the border, and to make sure that criminals are not coming into our country. But the Biden administration, they wanted these people.
But you know how ridiculous it is to look around and go, these guys are coming in illegally. They're getting money. They're getting transport. They're getting everything. And people that do the things the right way, first of all, it's very difficult. if you want to do things right way. So the incentives for someone to come here to be a law-abiding, tax-paying citizen are very low compared to like how easy they have it. Are we going to get all these criminals out? Because I'm personally embarrassed to see all these people just committing crime.
I know that the Trump administration is looking at deporting as many people as possible. However, the focus is going to be on the criminals, and it should be, because we, as you said, maybe 8 million. It might be more than that. Trump quotes 14 million, and my guess is a lot larger than what we think. But we definitely, and I think the Trump administration will focus first on getting rid of the criminals.
And terrorism. We saw the story, Rob, of this known terrorist by the FBI, walking in the border and go like, "You're gonna know about me soon." Is there a priority list of people that are gonna get what they deserve coming?
There wasn't under the Biden administration, but I'm convinced.
So there's no list.
I think there is a list. I think they know. They just didn't care.
Can I ask you, you say they wanted them here, right? What was that incentive? Why did the Democratic Party, why did the Biden administration want to bring in these people by the thousands and tens of thousands and now hundreds of thousands?
So I think they wanted illegals in general because they thought they could get them to vote. And there's no doubt that some of the illegals did vote. That was their new strategy. The 4 years ago, it was mail-in ballots.
Yes.
This time, it was getting illegals in the right states. So if you look at the battleground states, that's where they transferred. Because remember, Border Patrol went from, they used to hide from them, right? They wanted to get around them. They wanted, not one under Biden. They wanted to find Border Patrol because Border Patrol was the transfer agent to get them to the states that the Biden administration wanted these illegals in, and then they were paid for. Everything got paid for. Why? There's only one reason. They wanted them to vote.
And isn't it interesting when you look at the battleground states and the other states where she won, it was states that typically didn't require voter ID. What do you think the election outcome would have been for Donald Trump had there been mandatory voter ID requirements?
There's no more important issue in America than this fraud issue. They did it with mail-in ballots. I have no doubt, because we stopped it in Texas. I saw what they were doing, and I told the president months before it happened that he was going to lose on mail-in ballots because I saw the strategy. I told him in May. And I think this issue has to be resolved where we have to have a way to verify who's voting, because photo ID works.
Yes.
Now, they can kind of get around it with mail-in ballots, but if you can protect the mail-in ballot problem and the photo ID problem, you've got a really good chance of stopping a lot of voter fraud.
Back to the number of people that have come in. 736 encounters with individuals who are listed on the terrorist screening data set. It has been 23 years since the 9/11 attacks here in the United States of America. And if you believe the official narrative into what happened there, it only took a network of 19 guys plus a 20th guy who didn't make the flight and a bunch of dudes in caves, one of which were hooked up to dialysis, to orchestrate those attacks. It doesn't take a large amount of people to bring down the two biggest buildings in the United States of America, have a plane crash into the Pentagon, if you believe that narrative, and then also the plane at Shanksville. With the 736 encounters that we've had that are known, do you guys have any estimates as to how many terrorists may have snuck into the country, and how much closer are we to having another 9/11 style type event here in the United States due to the border that has been open for the past 4 years?
So the Biden administration was not cooperative in giving us information. They told us nothing. They told the governors nothing. They did not cooperate. They did not work with. It was almost like we had an enemy in charge of our border, and that's just reality. As far as whether we've got a better chance of a terrorist attack, there's no doubt that the Biden administration opened us up, and as technology has advanced, it's gotten easier since 9/11 for a terrorist with a smaller group of people and maybe less resources to be able to commit a terrorist attack, even worse. And that's my concern, that the Biden administration put us at great risk, and they've left that in the hands of the Trump administration.
Let me ask you a question, and then I'll go to you, Brandon. Okay, so let's just look at some of the net positives to illegal immigration. The fentanyl crisis, terrorists coming over the border, murder and rapists. How many did you say? Or I'm sorry, criminals.
450,000 that they know.
450,000. Okay, so those are all the great parts of illegal immigration. Can you point to me what the Biden administration, what would be the justification for allowing this type of invasion into our country?
You know, did you ever? I never really heard them give one. They just did it.
But it's not even. You can't even make the argument they're trying to find a better life here in America. They've offered nothing. There's been no explanation as to how, despite looking at the overwhelming amount of evidence in which illegal immigration is a detriment to this country, the Biden administration, like you just said, has no no good reasons to allow it.
I'm going to say for voting, and second, they had a secondary, I think, goal. They wanted to put illegals in states like Texas and Florida who are doing really well compared to the Democratic states to help bring them down so that they would have less ability to have positive economic results.
Follow up, and then Brandon. We saw reports that there were maps being given out by the Red Cross in Central American and Southern American countries, giving these to people who were in these caravans that were coming up as to the routes that they could go and where they could get help once they reached the United States. In your experience as the Attorney General of a border state, Texas, is there any validity, any truth that the Red Cross or anybody else was handing out these pamphlets to illegal migrant caravans and providing them with the routes to get assistance once they got to the United States?
Yes, one of the strategies of the Biden administration was to funnel money into these nonprofits, these NGOs, these non-governmental organizations, to wash the money so that nobody knew how the money was being spent. But we were investigating at least 5 charities who were aiding and abetting illegal immigration, that were hiding people, that were transporting people, that were doing everything they could. We are in lawsuits right now being accused of being anti-Catholic, even though that has nothing to do with being Catholic. So there is no doubt that one of the strategies of the Biden administration was to funnel money into a nonprofit. So then they didn't have to answer for what the money was being spent on.
So some of these things that have been done by people in the Biden administration, I think, are straight up treasonous. Like Mayorkas, for example, what does it tell you? This long list of pardons that we're seeing that are almost preemptive pardons that they're phrasing them as. Does that tell you that they're actually guilty of it? And how powerful is the pardon? How all-encompassing is it?
You know, everyone's going to be different depending on what the pardon's for and then what they ultimately do in the future. I have a hard time believing that a pardon will pardon you for something in the future. Mm-hmm. So my guess is that strategy, if Hunter Biden does something else in the future, I think he's going to be accountable. For the things in the past, I mean, that's something that is constitutional, whether we agree with it or not. Yeah. I think it makes the Democrats look bad when their president pardons the son, but
that's an admission of guilt, though, right?
Pretty much.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
With what Rob said, like we're witnessing a crime scene. I mean, there's so much crime that went on. The NGOs, the illegal immigrants, crime, murder, everything. Will we have the tools to prosecute them after the fact and the resources to prosecute them after the fact? Because the crimes are already committed. People already died. People already lost their job. Like, will you able, the NGOs, the Jesuits are the worst. It's my word. No, I mean, I'm from Chile. They brought people illegally there just as they did here, like in hundreds of thousands in a small country, like, you know, and that's how they operate. They get money from the government and they aid them. Like I had the pamphlets in my hand. How they aid them, they get legal aid, they get maps, they get everything so they can just come into the country. Like I've seen it with my own eyes at the border.
So what was the question?
The question is,
what's your point?
No. The question is, will you have the tools, and will you be able to prosecute them after the fact? So there's many things that we don't know yet that we have to prosecute.
So, first of all, I want to correct something unpardoned. Mm-hmm. There are some pardons that I think are justified because we have all of these prosecutions by the FBI, Department of Justice, that are, I think, illegal and unconscionable, and they're politically based. And so I can see why sometimes you pardon people to get them out of this mess. So I don't think it's necessarily admission of guilt, but everybody knows Hunter Biden committed crimes.
Yeah.
That one I know, I don't think there's any dispute. So as far as what we can do in the future, my office, for instance, has no authority to prosecute crimes. It's all in the hands of, many times in my state, the district attorneys in all the big counties. They tend to be George Soros, and so they don't get prosecuted. That's a problem in my state that the legislature should fix, but so far they've refused to fix it, mostly because we've had a very liberal Republican speaker named Dade Phelan who's no longer going to speak her. But if we end up with another liberal speaker, we won't be able to fix problems like that. Now, the federal government, hopefully Pam Bondi and Kash Patel, I'm very optimistic about what they're going to do. They can start pursuing actual crimes as opposed to political crimes that we've been dealing with for the last 4 years.
We have to wrap up. Before you leave, selfish question. By the way, Attorney General Ken Paxton joining us. You can find him on all socials at Ken Paxton TX. Ken, Attorney General Paxton. Kash Patel.
First Attorney General on the show.
First Attorney General.
Show some respect, bro.
I said Attorney General Paxton. Question for you before we let you go. I'm obsessed with the JFK assassination and what has happened in Dallas, Texas in 1963 in Dealey Plaza. Kash Patel said he wants to declassify all of the government documents including the JFK assassination. Is there any power that the Attorney General has to reopen the investigation if those files are declassified into the assassination of JFK? Most of the people are dead, but do you actually have the power to possibly pursue criminal charges against anyone who may be involved in that once the files are declassified?
So again, I don't, because I don't have authority to prosecute crimes. Only our DAs do in Texas. And that's a problem that we need to fix in Texas. Other state AGs have what's called concurrent jurisdiction with the DAs, and they would have the authority to do whatever they can do under their
So we
state
need
laws.
a badass district attorney to work with a badass attorney general to be able to get that done.
We need the Republican legislature to give me the authority to prosecute certain crimes so we can overcome the George Soros DAs in Austin, in Dallas, and other places in Texas.
Ladies and gentlemen, Attorney General Ken Paxton. Find him on all socials. Ken Paxton TX. Attorney General Paxton, thank you so much for joining us on the show. Thank you for your courage to stand up and do what's right for the American people and continuing to fight to try and protect this country.
Thank you for letting me be the first Attorney General on your show.
You're more than welcome, sir. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Guys at home, I believe we're going to continue the live stream. Kelly, is that correct? We're going to bring on another guest, and okay, awesome. We're going to take just a second break, so don't go anywhere. Coming up, we have Benny Johnson, I believe, who's going to be joining us. But Attorney General Ken Paxton, it was a pleasure meeting you, and thank you so much.
Thank you.
So if you like this clip, click right here. And if you want to see more like it, click right here. Stay angry, Patriots.